Hey guys, I'm here at the Health Optimization Summit in London, and the other day actually, a certain Patrick from Ireland, who is an excellent expert in breathing methods to resolve issues, one of my network people said, "Do you not know Patrick in the west of Ireland?" And I didn't. But hey presto,
I'm here. Yeah, we have to meet in London, it's always one of those things. But for me, breathing, it very much took off outside of Ireland. And now I know that it's starting to become more aware of it. But I've been in the space for 20 years full time. So for the past 20 years, a lot of our work has been from America to Australia. And we have about 3,000 instructors in 50 countries and 9 books published internationally. So in terms of the breath world, we have a little bit of a reach out there. So it's good. It's going to happen in Ireland too.
excellent. I'm going to be there too because now I know. I have a general awareness from all my work in health and biohacking and everything else of the importance of breathing. And interestingly for me, I don't really do what I should be doing, but when I go on stage with a big crew or 600-700 people, I consciously breathe deeply. And I noticed that the instinct is to stop breathing, which is crazy,
Yeah.
So that's just a little slice of the importance of breathing, but maybe give a broader view.
Yeah, I think it's our everyday breathing that really influences how resilient you are when you're going out on stage. And a lot of people, prior to doing a public performance, they may stop breathing, but they will be sighing, having irregular breathing. They can have faster breathing, upper chest breathing. And the problem with that is that when you breathe in that way, the communication from the body up to the brain is that the body is under threat. And all the brain wants to do is get you out of the situation. So when we go out to do a public performance or any sort of performance, even a job interview, I'd always say to people is don't let your breathing let you down. And by having control over your breathing, you're able to change states. So in terms of the breath, very simply, if you wanted to upregulate, you can take a few full deep breaths. That's an upregulator. But you don't want to do too many because then you go into hyperventilation. Or if you do a long breath hold, that's an upregulator. But if you want to downregulate, so say for example, if you're already ramped up, but you want to bring yourself back into balance, then you're thinking about breathing nose breathing, light breathing, slow breathing, low breathing. Because by doing that, and you can use any of those approaches, you can help to stimulate the vagus nerve, which secretes a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, which causes the heart rate to slow down. And once the heart rate is slowing down, the brain interprets that the body is safe. So even if we get into a challenging situation, the first thing that we should be doing is making sure that we're not hyperventilating, because if we're hyperventilating, just to remember, all the body wants to do is get out of there. So the next time there's a challenging situation, in and out through the nose, and if you slow down the speed of the exhalation, it's not the speed of the inhalation that matters so much, but it's the speed of the exhalation. If you breathe out fast, it's a stressor. But if you have a slow and relaxed and gentle breath out, your body is telling the brain that everything is okay. So I think it's very important to know tools, because if one is going to university or one is doing any sort of performance or giving a presentation, very often their performance is hampered by their physiology. And their physiology is happening even during the night before. I remember I came across breathing in 1998. It was written in the Irish Times or the Irish Independent, I'm not sure which one. And it spoke of the Ukrainian doctor Konstantin Butekal. And that day when I came across it, I started gently slowing down my breathing, and I was able to influence the temperature of my fingers. I never realized that the harder I breathed, because I was an upper chest breather and a faster breather, it was causing my blood vessels to constrict. So cold hands and cold feet are very common with people with dysfunctional breathing. But then during sleep, I was always waking up with a dry mouth in the morning. So I was mouth breathing during sleep, and I was waking up feeling exhausted. So that night I taped up my mouth. And the first morning I don't really remember much, but in terms of a difference, but it was the second morning I woke up, and it was the first morning that I really woke up feeling refreshed. So when we talk about changing states, we have to think about getting the sleep, and especially from a breathing perspective, right. And then if, for example, we're practicing distraction all day long, we're not going to be focused in on when we need it. But it's breathing exercises by bringing that balance of the autonomic nervous system. it helps to bring a calmness so that you're less likely then to go into this fight or flight, that you can cope with more. Because I did a degree. I left school at 14 years of age, never to go back. That was in 1988 or 1989. I was in St. Declan's in Cabra. And I hated school. I was the kid falling asleep. I was the kid with no concentration. And I was the kid that was struggling academically. So I left. And I went back a year later. And I made a drive. I wanted to get into Trinity College in Dublin. So I studied hard. I was studying 10, 12 hours a day. It could have been a lot easier. But nobody told me about changing my states, and nobody told me about improving my sleep. I got my degree and I was in the corporate world. Hated it too. Hated stress levels, hated everything about it. But it wasn't a corporation. If you send a faster breather and an upper chest breather and somebody with sleep disorder breathing into a difficult situation, they can't cope. That was me. So it was just by chance reading this article. I then changed careers. I'd spent 4 years in TCD, and then I said, well, I now want to start teaching breathing, and nobody was doing it at the time. So I trained in Russia under the Ukrainian doctor, and I started teaching mainly people with asthma, and then people with sleep disorder breathing and sleep apnea, people with anxiety and panic disorder. And then in 2014, I wrote a book called The Oxygen Advantage, and that went into many different languages. And it's that's the way it happened. But sometimes life directs you in a different way. And that's what when I was talking today, we'd spend 16 years in formal education, and we come out of it and we're not able to concentrate. And there are hundreds and thousands of people that go to business school and they come out of it and they're not able to deal with stress. Surely education, academically, and there's a lot of pressure on people to do well academically, but we're not giving them the tools to do that, and mindfulness isn't where it's at. Because if you have somebody with such agitation of the mind and sleep disorder breathing and dysfunctional breathing, they're not going to be able to do mindfulness. So the foundations are, let's start looking at improving sleep quality, and this goes much more than this, Ivor. There was a study here in Stratford-upon-Avon, and it was published in the journal Pediatrics in 2012. It was by a researcher, Karen Bonnock, Bonuck. She looked at 11,000 British school kids. The children with sleep disorder breathing at age 5, if untreated, they had a 40% increased risk of special education needs by age 8. The significance of this is, and they put down mouth breathing and snoring as the classic hallmark symptoms, and apnea, of course. During childhood, the brain is developing, and in order for the brain to develop, the child needs to be getting that very deep, slow wave sleep. But it doesn't happen if they have sleep disorders. So that's children. But I will also say that no adult is going to reach their full potential if they're having obstructive sleep apnea, and it's totally undiagnosed or underdiagnosed in Ireland. There's no significance of whether the person is, waking up tired, and we men are more prone to it. But you send that man or woman, lesser extent that they're prone to it, but women are more prone to panic disorder, which in turn can be influenced by your breathing. Send these individuals into a challenging situation. They're not going to cope so well, and it's not necessarily the situation. And this is the information that I would like to be getting out there. I feel that breathing has been taught very poorly for decades. I feel that it's been too left of field. There's nothing left of field about breathing. It's literally giving people the tools to be able to change your own physiology in response to a situation. And for me, that has been the best trait that for my own personal experience in 20 years. If I'm making a talk, I don't want to be going out in the talk totally stuck in my head with my attention drifting off and not having the energy to give the talk. I want to be fully immersed in what I'm doing, almost that you have the mental capacity and energy to get through a brick wall. And when people talk about flow states, it's often bandied about, but it's not necessarily shown how do you access that flow state, how do you access that state of mind, whereby you're both in alertness and relaxation at the same time. And the beauty about flow states is when you get into that flow, the right action happens by itself. And it's almost that it's effortless and time flies, but it's quality work. And also when you're in that flow talking to somebody, your listener is better engaged. And even just that But in order to have flow states, we need to have concentration. But in order to have concentration, which is the capacity to hold our attention on something, we need to have optimal sleep quality and optimal breathing. And I feel for the thousands of kids, the people in the universities, because education is not teaching you how to concentrate, but in order to get through education, you have to be able to concentrate. Now, I'm nearly 50 years of age. It's a different story now because we have less distractions than the kids growing up now. And now with mobile phones, they have distraction after distraction. And the problem with that is that their mind is often now trained to be distracted. So yes, they don't have the ability to hold their attention on what they are doing, but because of the amounts of thoughts going through their head and living in their head, they're going to be more anxious, they're going to be more stressed, and they're not going to enjoy life. Life is going to be more difficult because if this filter through which we interpret all of our life experience, if we don't have a personal experience of being able to bring a calmness to the mind and gaps between thoughts, and again, I'm not talking about mindfulness, I'm talking about the physiology, we can then live life.
Excellent. Well, that was a tour de force, Patrick. So that was superb. And I wouldn't add much, and I know we're tight in time here, but I must say, just as an example, and again, I have not studied this specifically, but it resonates massively. And like I say, instinctively, and maybe from picking up from some books or whatever, articles, I control my breathing, as I say, and I get into pure fight and no flight. And it's funny, last night, a last minute offer to go into GB News Studios in Paddington, 20-minute panel in studio, and quite a controversial topic. I sat in that green room for 30 minutes. I breathed deep and slow out. Yes. And I said, I'm going to kill this.
Yeah.
And, the difference, and I know I'm instinctively, if I did not do that, I'm holding my breath.
Yeah.
And not good. And then if you begin to get a little worried and more worried, you begin to hyperventilate.
Yes.
And you're not aware you're doing it.
No.
And it's driving your physiology into rabbit territory.
Yeah.
So
totally.
Yeah.
And these are the basic tools. And when people ask about the deep breath, I'd also like to point out that when we take a deep breath and we have better recruitment of the diaphragm, you don't have to be taking these full, big, massive breaths, because the risk there is that you're over-breathing. And with that, we can get rid of too much carbon dioxide from the blood through the lungs, and blood vessels constrict. Blood pH increases, which in turn can put us into that fight or flight. So it's kind of a balance between the nose, breathing light, breathing slow, and breathing low. And I would totally agree with you. This morning I had to talk here at 9:30. I was here at 8:45. I closed my eyes, and I always have my own ritual of changing my states going out on stage, because you want to access that flow state, you want to be fully engaged and present in what you're doing. But you also want to have a certain amount of nerves, not too much, but not too little. And that's a great tool, because I can only imagine me in the old days, 25 years ago, I wouldn't have even came near the place, because I would be absolutely, overwhelmed. But many people are in that situation. So what you did in the green room is exactly, but why doesn't everybody know about it?
Well, and hopefully I can do a little bit towards helping with that. But your book, The Oxygen Solution?
The Oxygen Advantage.
Yes, sorry.
You're all right.
Make sure I get it right. The Oxygen Advantage, superb book. I've heard through my network. I'm going to get it too. And we're going to circle back, because you're in Ireland, so we're going to come back for another interview in maybe a few months.
Great stuff. Thanks very much, Ivor.
And final thing before we go, because I've been involved quite considerably in the COVID controversy, the science, the data, and over the past couple of years, I take it you wouldn't be a huge advocate for masking our children?
I'm not a huge advocate for masking children at all. I would also point out that I think there is a role for masks, but the problem with wearing the mask with adults is this. Adults were wearing masks, and there was no instruction whatsoever about how do you deal with the air hunger and feeling of suffocation. If you wear a mask, you naturally pool carbon dioxide inside the mask, and that's okay. But how does the person react to the pooling of carbon dioxide? They typically will breathe faster, mouth breathe, and breathe upper chest, and that's going to put them into a fight or flight. So if you were wearing a mask for a few minutes, no problem. But if you were wearing a mask for 8 hours, that's an 8 hour period of time that you are putting yourself into a fight and flight response. And I think that it has to have driven up anxiety levels, but it will really affect those people who are more vulnerable. People with ADD, people with anxiety, people with panic disorder, because they are the group who are more susceptible to the feeling of suffocation. I've made plenty of mistakes with breathing, and I've put people into anxiety attacks, I've put people into panic attacks, I've floored people with chronic fatigue syndrome. I've seen what breathing can do. And wearing the mask without any instruction on how to optimize alveolar ventilation, how to deal with the feeling of suffocation, how not to go into that fight or flight response, I think it was a pity. And the other thing that I'm going to say about COVID is there was no instruction of breathing through the nose. Since 1991, there's a gas called nitric oxide, which is antiviral and antibacterial. So, we have seen it with many, many instances, hundreds, thousands of people, that when you breathe through your nose, you're less likely to get colds, you're less likely to get chest infections. There was no instruction about this. So wearing a mask but not telling people to breathe through the nose, to me that didn't make sense.
Absolutely, Patrick, and it's kind of even worse than that, because our whole mucosal immune system is in our nose and is huge, and we heard nothing about it.
No so, and the mouth, this is not rocket science. All you have to do is look inside the mouth and ask what part of the mouth plays any role in terms of the breath, and the answer is zero. So all the mouth is, it's a hole. It's a hole whereby unfiltered, cold, dry air can go straight down your throat, but mouth breathing is causing activation of the upper chest and faster breathing. I think we need an enormous awareness on breathing, especially with nose breathing, and it's a great place to start, and I think it's happening now. I think it's starting to happen, Ivor, but it's taken a long time.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Patrick. And the oxygen advantage, not solution, that was some other guy. Excellent. And we'll meet again very shortly.
Thank you, Ivor.
Thank you.
As always, hope you enjoyed that, and don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button, all important. And do hit that little notification bell also. And thanks so much to all my Patreon and PayPal supporters. Helps keep me going. That's a key source of income. And with trips to London and all the other work I do, it really helps to keep supported there at some level. So anyone else seeing my material, again, please consider hopping on. The links are down below. So thanks everyone. And here's the place where you get the non-corporate, non-media, legacy biased kind of information and data. And I hope to keep delivering that so you can keep enjoying getting true insights into what's going on in the world today. Thank you.